Welcome to the Vince Coglianese Show. Vince, not here today. It's Mike Opelka once more sitting in for my buddy Vince Coglianese. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving weekend. I did. It was pretty quiet, and that's a good thing. I got to watch a lot of sports, college and pro. Got to play a little golf. Got to hang out with my wife. All of that is great. And I watched what was happening in the world, and we're going to talk about some of that. Some of it relates to you. Some of it relates directly to you. So we will try and cover as much as possible. Look, we're 49 days out from the Iowa caucuses. 49 days. It seems like just yesterday it was 50. Now, actually, we've been monitoring how quickly the elections seem to jump upon us. And they truly are moving very, very quickly. And this week we have the curious debate that a lot of people are asking questions about, the curious debate between Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis that's going to happen on Fox, which I have questions. And full disclosure, I have known Sean Hannity for, almost 30 years. And haven't seen him in a while because we live in different parts of the country and run in different circles. But he's always been a good guy to me, always been a decent guy. But I don't understand this debate. And I would ask him, why are you doing this? It seemed like a good idea. I'm sure somebody said, whenever it was six weeks ago when Newsom was on with Hannity, and the discussions started about, hey, are you going to bump Joe Biden? And if so, how about who do you want to face off and all this? And then suddenly it was Hannity pushing the debate that he will moderate, and he'll do a fine job with it, I'm sure, between Gavin Newsom and Ron DeSantis. Or is it DeSantis? I can't get confirmation. We need actual confirmation on that. So, because the pronunciation seems to be changing. But I will watch, and I'm sure many, many people will watch, just because, depending on many, many dominoes and how they fall, one of these guys could end up being a nominee. One of them. Both of them? Interesting. A lot of news going on halfway around the world in Israel as the fourth day of the hostage exchange and ceasefire is now pretty much coming to a wrap. It's just after 10 p.m. in Tel Aviv, and they have turned over 11 new hostages to the Red Cross. They are en route to Israel and to hospitals. Yesterday, we had the first American citizen. I'm not sure if there's an American citizen among the group released today. I know retired Admiral John Kirby was asked about the American citizens still being held by Hamas just about 2 hours ago in the press briefing, said this about that.
John, how many Americans are still being held hostage, and do you have proof of life?
We think the number is, it's less than 10, probably in the neighborhood of, about 8 to 9. But we don't necessarily have firm, solid information on each and every one of them.
Well, and I hope we get that. I hope we get them out. Something pretty interesting this weekend as I was monitoring all of the Sunday talk shows, and there are 5 of them if you're keeping score. So it takes a while to get through them all. But one of the interesting things about the Sunday talk shows to me this week was on with Shannon Bream on Fox. And again, full disclosure, we happen to be buddies, so I don't want anybody to think I'm, playing favorites here, but I do like her. She's a smart lady. Shannon Bream was talking with a Democrat representative, Auchincloss. I think he's a Massachusetts representative, House member. And he's also a guy who served our country in the military. And anybody who serves, I don't care if you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, whatever. If you serve this country, you are afforded an immediate modicum of respect for putting your cheese out there. And Auchincloss was talking about a discussion. There's several several members of Congress who have served and said, hey, why aren't we doing more to get the American hostages out? When this aired on Sunday, there had yet to have been an American hostage released. And many of us are feeling like, where is the commander-in-chief? Where is the leader? Where is the guy who's in charge telling Hamas, let our people go now? And many people believe that it was Iran saying, don't let them out. We want it to be as painful as possible for America. We want to hang on to the American hostages as long as possible. That's currency for them. And Iran certainly has some history there. But Auchincloss was talking with Shanna Bream about American hostages and the possible use of special forces to get them out.
By now, I would have expected American special forces to perhaps play a hand in extracting them. I think it's absurd, shocking, and dismaying that 6 weeks later we still have American hostages held by a terror organization in Gaza.
First of all, 7 weeks, Congressman, but continue.
I'm happy for the Israelis, don't get me wrong. Hamas should release all hostages. But the fact that we have Americans sitting in Gaza right now held hostage is appalling and should be addressed immediately.
Yeah. I actually appreciate a Democrat member of Congress coming forward with this kind of strength. This is the kind of unifying message that the country needs, but isn't getting from 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Not even close to getting that. So thank you, Representative. Thank you. That was excellent. Excellent, excellent. Now, what about the truce? What about the truce? Well, it looks like today there have been an additional 2 days tacked on to the truce/ceasefire, which means another 2 days of hostage releases, still almost 200 still in captivity, being held by Hamas. But does the length of the truce help Hamas? John Kirby was asked that question earlier today as well.
You know, all along you've been very clear about concerns that a broader ceasefire would only benefit Hamas. Sullivan was pretty clear yesterday in saying that, Hamas has been able to gain some benefit from this. How concerned are you that the longer this truce lasts, now 6 days, that Hamas will benefit? And how do you weigh that?
It's a real risk. You have to expect a group like Hamas, a terrorist group, which clearly doesn't abide by laws of war, will try to take advantage of any pause in the fighting for their own benefit. So we're watching that closely, as well as our Israeli counterparts. You can bet that they're watching that closely.
Well, here's the problem with that statement. Part of the ceasefire agreement was that Israel would pull all of its drones out of the sky. Israel had been blanketing the region with drones that were sending back critical military information. But all of those were returned to base, if you will. So that's not really bringing back any information. And we know that truckloads and truckloads and truckloads of aid and fuel and medicine, etc., has been sent across the border, sent into Gaza in the last 3 days, 4 days. And you can bet that Hamas is controlling the distribution. And you have to wonder about shipments of arms and ammunition, if any of that's going back. We shall see. 2 more days, apparently. 2 more days tacked on. And yeah, we are now in the 8th week since the attack on October 7th. Now, there is something surprising to me, and maybe it is to you as well. The surprising thing to me was the condition of the hostages. The release, they generally seem to be in good health, and I'm actually happy about that, because you're worried when you see the tunnel networks. What kind of hellhole are these people, these innocent victims, being forced to live in? What conditions are they dealing with? So let's hope that everyone was treated as well as possible by these terrorists. I doubt it. There's no real set of values among Hamas that I think I would ever agree with. So many other things we have to talk about today. The government intrusion into your life continues, as this was kind of dumped late last week, and Mayor Pete is behind it 100%. We talked about the kill switches in cars, and now there is discussion of limiting the speed that your car will be allowed to drive, and that a government mandate would be required of every automaker to limit the speed on your car. We'll talk about that because that's kind of troubling. We have car coach Lauren Fix going to join us to discuss that. President Biden is back at the White House from his holiday at the $34 million mansion on Nantucket, where he was not exactly received well. I know if you watched football over the weekend, if you watched Donald Trump was in South Carolina at the Clemson, South Carolina game and received mostly really positive response. It was mostly applause that Donald Trump received. And then if you look at the video of Joe Biden walking around Nantucket, there were a lot of people yelling at him. There were a lot of people talking about Genocide Joe, calling him Genocide Joe. And it's a vast contrast between the two. So, oh, by the way, Newsweek magazine couldn't help themselves. If you watch the videos of Donald Trump walking out of the field at the Clemson and South Carolina game, the applause was overwhelming. There were some boos, but Newsweek had to report that it was boos, a chorus of boos. I'm sorry you missed it. That's Bravo Sierra. That's just not true. We will have clips from Joe Biden from today. Less than an hour and a half ago, he spoke at the White House. And you're probably thinking he was talking about the hostages, giving us an update on what's going on there, maybe an update on what's happening at our southern border. No, he wants to talk about supply chain and smear what he likes to call MAGA Republicans, because that's what they're doing. And there's more from the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, a.k.a. Cringe, on this program. We will get into that. Amazon, are you an Amazon shopper? Are you an Etsy shopper? Noticed something this weekend that really offended me, and it has to do with Amazon and Etsy, both selling Hamas-supporting merchandise. I wish I were kidding. One of them reacted pretty darn quickly to the outcry. One of them. We will dive into that. And I have a couple of other surprises today for you. You're welcome to join the conversation at any time. 888-630-9625 is the number. 888-630-9625. Mike Opelka is my name, in for Vince Coglianese. Today on this Monday, the 27th of November. It is going to be December by the end of the week. And that is just remarkable to me. But here we are. A lot going on today. As I said, we're going to talk about the latest polls, and there is a truckload of bad news in the world of polling for Joe Biden. We'll talk about the political poll. We'll talk about the NBC. We talked last week about the NBC News poll that showed voters under 35 were running like rats from a sinking California to get away from Joe Biden. And Josh Kraushaar is going to join us in about 15 minutes and break it down. So that'll be a good thing. I was looking at this RNC graphic that came out over the weekend that said Americans saw disposable income decline in 2022 more than the preceding 7 years, more than any year in the preceding 7 years. So disposable income, which is what you have at the end of the week or at the end of the month after you've gotten paid and you paid your bills, and then maybe you got a couple of dollars in your pocket, you got something you could spend on. Americans saw a decline in disposable income that was a bigger decline, a greater decline in 2022 than in the preceding 7 years. So anybody who tells you that Bidenomics is working, well, they're not telling you the truth. It's Bravo Sierra, but Joe wants you to believe it's working. He wants you to think it's really working.
Bidenomics is just another way of saying the American dream. Bidenomics is just another way of saying restore the American dream. Bidenomics is just another way of saying restore the American dream.
The American dream was not, let's try and make it to the end of the month. The American dream was not, it's living paycheck to paycheck. It's wrong, but that's Joe Biden, and he was speechifying today in the White House press room. In fact, telling you that your Thanksgiving dinner was so much better, so much cheaper.
In fact, as a share of earnings this Thanksgiving, dinner was the 4th cheapest ever on record. I want you all to know that. I look at all the press, look at that.
Well, that's a warm round of indifference. It's, of course, a complete lie, too. Joe has more lies about this, and we'll get to it because he was certainly stretching reality again. Maybe that's the reality in his head. I can't be sure. I don't think anyone can be sure what's going on in there. Editor-in-chief of the Jewish Insider and author of Axios' Sunday Sneak newsletter is joining us next to talk about the polling data and Joe Biden's youth problem. That's right here on the Vince Coglianese Show on WMAL. It is 34 minutes after the hour. Mike Opelka is my name, sitting in for my buddy Vince Coglianese on the Vince Coglianese Show here on WMAL. Glad to be here. Just reading kind of a strange bit of breaking news. It has nothing to do with the politics, but, you know, it's kind of a political show. But CBS has to cancel all the late shows this week because Stephen Colbert suffered a ruptured appendix over the weekend. Now, that is not a good thing, especially if you're not near a hospital. And as little appreciation I have for the content of his show, you don't want anybody going through that. That's whew. But he must be doing well because he took to social media to yuck it up a little bit and explain why he's not on the air. But I'm sure all those movie companies that were expecting to do promotions for all their stuff are not going to be happy. But heal quickly, Mr. Colbert. I hope you do get back to your work soon. Because, frankly, we have fun making fun of it. It's kind of the way that works. I don't wish him ill. I just wish he makes bad jokes so we can make fun of it. A lot of talk about the election, which is 344 days away from today. 344 days. It will be here before you know it. We'll be circling the conventions and looking at strange hats and delegates and all that before you know it, and then the election will be upon us. But the polling has been incessant lately. It is almost hourly. It feels like we get a new poll saying that the tide has turned, things have shifted, Trump's lead is growing, Biden's numbers are bad, and then you hear Joe Biden tell us we're not looking at the right polls. We're looking at the wrong polls. So who do you believe and how do you understand it? And the best way for me to understand is to talk to somebody smarter. And Josh Kraushaar is with us, editor-in-chief of the Jewish Insider, author of Axios' Sunday Sneak newsletter. Josh, yeah, accept my apology. I mispronounced your name earlier. And a guy like me whose name gets butchered every single day understands it. So I hope you can forgive me, sir.
Yeah, I feel your pain, but thanks for having me on the show, man.
I'm glad you're here. Is Joe Biden correct? Are we just looking at the wrong polls?
Well, the reality is the polls have been pretty consistent over the last few months, and it's shown that President Biden is probably the most vulnerable incumbent president, certainly since George H.W. Bush, based on his numbers at this time. And he's got a lot of challenges from a lot of Americans feeling the economy is not healthy enough for them and for their own personal day-to-day needs, from the fact that they're you have a lot of worldwide events, from the war in Gaza to the war in Ukraine that seem to suggest that the world is in tumult. And you also have the age factor, which we've been talking, it's been a running theme ever since Biden first got elected. But, the president just turned 81 years old. He'll be 80, almost 82, I guess 82 heading into the, if he got reelected. And it's just a challenge, even within his own party, where a lot of voters are not sure whether he's up for another 4 years of this job. So, it's sort of a double whammy. The country is feeling in a little bit of malaise. The polling indicates a pretty consistent pattern where people don't think the country's headed on the right track. They don't think their kids have a better future than they do. And that's not a good environment for any incumbent to be running in. And then you also have the fact that you have chaos abroad and you have age factor, and these things, especially the age issue, is not going to be going away anytime soon. It's only going to become more apparent as the campaign gets underway. So these are real challenges that I think the polls do paint a consistent picture about, and it's why you can't compare it to, at least when you had, when Obama had challenges in 2011, his numbers were never quite as poor as Biden's are right now, and he could at least, hope that the economy would turn around. He could hope that a good campaign and a good consistent message could change the voter sentiment. There are a lot of fundamentals right now in Biden's numbers that are not likely to change before 2024, and that's what's worrying a lot of folks, including a lot of Democrats at the White House.
Yeah, it seems like a year or almost a year is an eternity in politics, and that there could be a couple of events that could make a significant impact on polling, or at least on people's feelings. Are there, say, a top three issues that if they turned around quickly, you could see having a positive effect for Biden?
Well, I think the biggest asset that Biden is going to have is the possibility that Donald Trump is his opponent. And even though Trump is actually leading Biden in the average of polls by a point or two, which is itself pretty significant given all of Trump's baggage and his high unfavorables on his own. But, I think the playbook for the White House is pretty simple. This election wouldn't be about, as much about Biden's political assets, but it'll be about making a choice between, the lesser of two less than ideal choices. And I think you're going to be hearing a lot about abortion rights. That's going to be an issue that's worked well for Democrats in recent elections. You're going to be hearing a lot about the threats Trump poses to democracy in the eyes of this White House. And it's ultimately going to be about, they're going to try to make this election, if Trump is the nominee, of course, about Donald Trump. The challenge is that, like back in 2020, when we did have that matchup, Trump never led Joe Biden in any poll going up to the election. Right now, it's hard to find polls showing Joe Biden ahead of Donald Trump, despite all the baggage that the former president brings to the table. I will say the other issue that the White House has been leaning on, and I'm not sure if it's working to their benefit, but they have been branding the economy in their name. Bidenomics has been the message that the president's been talking about these last few months. And I think the hope is that there's some indicators in the macroeconomic data, whether it's low unemployment, whether it's the fact that inflation has tamed quite a bit over the last year, whether the fact that there's not going to be a recession if you believe the latest economic indicators. There's some green shoots in the economy that I think the White House is hoping will translate into a more positive perception from voters. And we're not seeing that data translate into public support for where the economy is and where things are. But I think that's the other hope, that as we get closer to November of 2024, maybe people start feeling a little bit better about their economic situation.
Well, economies are like ocean liners. They take a long time to turn and a long time to stop if they're going the wrong direction. And that is almost a year. And at that time, if the economy is significantly better, if inflation is closer to 2% like it was under Donald Trump, the Democrats, I'm guessing, are then going to try and lean on it. But the question always seems to be, are you better off now than you were 4 years ago? And I'm wondering if there are any categories that you think just are impossible to say, oh, yeah, I am. It seems like there are a bunch of things like you brought up home affordability, which we now know it's probably the worst it's been in 20 plus years, and interest rates are as high as they've been for the last three presidencies. So there aren't a lot of areas that I'm guessing, other than maybe inflation being tamed, that Americans can say, yeah, I'm better off, because hasn't there been a significant loss of household wealth during the first 3 years of the Biden administration?
Well, goods cost a whole lot more than they did in 2020, and that is the price politically that this White House is paying. I mean, yeah, inflation has maybe the acceleration of prices has been contained for the time being, and there's some optimism on that front. But people paying 15-16% more for groceries, for household goods, give or take a few points, than they did back in 2020. And that until that really reverses, it's going to be hard to make people think that we're on the right path and everything is green shoots and everything's on the going great. Now, look, I think it's funny that the test of how are you better off than you were 4 years ago is one you hear a lot in politics. Now, in 2020, we were in the middle of COVID, and we also had at the end of 2020 or beginning of 2021 the January 6th riots. So I think that is going to be the argument that this White House is going to bring to the table, like trying to showcase the chaos that Trump brought, which was culminating on the riots of January 6th. And you also had, COVID. I think one of the challenges Trump faces is competence in dealing with the COVID virus. So, that's going to be the argument coming from the White House. I guess it depends whether you're looking at 2019 before COVID, before the election, and maybe how people were feeling at the very end of Trump's term when there was a lot of chaos and a lot of tumult in this country.
We're talking with Josh Kraushaar, editor-in-chief of the Jewish Insider, and he's also the guy behind Axios' Sunday Sneak newsletter. Josh, as you look at all the polling data, is there anything in that data that indicates it could be someone other than Joe Biden? And, we don't know about Donald Trump yet, even though he has a commanding lead among his Republican rivals. Is there anything among all the independent or rumored candidates in the polling that shows that there is a real vulnerability there for Biden?
Well, politics abhors a vacuum. So, I think if Biden's healthy, if he's able to run, I'm pretty confident he's going to be the Democratic nominee. Now, at his age, you never know. Like one health issue can be the difference between being able to campaign and being off the trail for a long time. So, that is the big X factor. The big wild card, though, in a general election is the presence of third-party candidates. And politics does abhor a vacuum. And if you have two candidates like Biden and Trump that are very, very disliked, they're probably the two most disliked politicians right now in the country, there is going to be an opportunity for candidates like a Robert F. Kennedy Jr., maybe Joe Manchin running on a moderate, no-label ticket. You have Green Party nominee Jill Stein in the picture. You're going to need a scorecard to keep track of some of these credible third-party candidates, because if you do have two very unpopular major party nominees, it doesn't mean they're not going to win, but it does mean there are going to be a lot of voters perhaps looking for an alternative. So it's going to be we're in a very volatile situation where, ironically, the primaries have been unusually stable given the level of dissatisfaction with both major party contenders, but you may see the volatility pop up in general, where you have a lot of candidates from across the ideological spectrum looking to jump in the picture as well.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever seen a real credible threat to the two major parties in terms of presidential candidacies and presidential races. Perot was the last one I could even think of who had a realistic chance at one point. Kennedy seems to run hot and then put his naked, barefoot presence coming out of an airplane bathroom in front of the American people, and everybody goes, what's wrong with him? But you mentioned Manchin. Manchin and Romney are whispered about as a possibility for this no labels thing. If that's the ticket, who's the presidential candidate? Because I don't know if Mitt Romney's capable of taking a backseat.
No, look, I'm very confident Mitt Romney is not going to run in any capacity for 2024. And I don't know that, politically speaking, I think that would not be the smart pathway for the no labels platform to find someone. I think it would be someone. Manchin is certainly flirting with that platform, but there are other people that are outside of politics. Part of what we're seeing in the polls, Mike, is that voters are. The one thing that connects a lot of these independent or disillusioned voters is they don't trust established politics. They don't trust career politicians of any stripe, no matter where you stand on the ideological spectrum. So that's part of why Kennedy has gotten some degree of interest at the point. But maybe someone else. Mark Cuban is the type of candidate. Not that he's going to run, but he's the type of outsider, an entrepreneur, someone who speaks his mind. That sort of was how Trump came to came to fame in the first place, that he was not your typical candidate, not your typical politician. And there is still that hunger out there for someone who's not in the political system, not tainted by politics, and is an outsider who can capture some popular imagination. It's hard, easier said than done, of course, and there are not a lot of people out there that fit the bill, but that is the kind of type of profile I think a third-party candidate would succeed on.
I had not thought about Mark Cuban in a dog's age, and I think he would be a lesser Trump. But that's a real interesting thought, because he certainly has the ability to get people's attention, and he's certainly proven himself in the business world. So, wow, thanks for bringing that up. We've been talking with Josh Kraushaar. You should find him on Twitter X. Great stuff there, as well as, you can go to Axios and get the Sunday Sneak newsletter. Josh, thanks for spending some time with us. I really appreciate your wisdom.
Thanks a lot, Mike. Talk to you later.
It is 55 minutes after 3 o'clock on this Monday. Gray Monday, a little chilly out there. It feels like, November. Everybody was freaking out, going, oh, it's so cold. Yeah, welcome to November. Maybe it's the full moon making people act up. Tonight is the actual full moon. And I was up before dawn this morning watching the moon set, which is always spectacular. It's Mike Opelka in for Vince Coglianese on the Vince Coglianese program. We are just about 10 minutes away of getting some quality time with my friend Gordon Chang, Gordon G. Chang on Twitter /X. Stuff is happening with China. There's a lot going on with China. I want to ask him about this reported standoff in the South China Sea between American vessels and Chinese vessels. And then there are reports of a pneumonia-like virus that is hospitalizing children in China. And the minute I heard the story, my spidey senses said, uh-oh, what? Let me do the timing on this. Could this lead to another shutdown, close the schools, mail-in ballots? We'll talk about that. We'll find out about that. And last week when I was sitting in for Vince for a couple of days, we talked briefly about the kill switches that Thomas Massey, Representative Thomas Massey from Kentucky, was trying to get the funding pulled because it's inside the Inflation Reduction Act, the ironically named Inflation Reduction Act, that this is going to force automakers to put a kill switch on every car sold after 2026, which will allow the government basically to shut your car down. Massey's attempt to remove it from the legislation got shut down by every Democrat and a handful of Republicans. And now they dumped this story over the weekend about speed limiters in cars. As somebody who thinks the safest place to be is in front of the fast drivers, I'm completely against this. We'll talk with Lauren Fix, the car coach, as well in about an hour about the speed limiters and what it could mean to you. Plus, more hypocrisy from Democrats. It's Mike Opelka in for Vince Coglianese on the Vince Coglianese Show.